Hello people, this is gonna be a kitchen knife review. Thank you for tuning in. I am going to compare 3 different kitchen knives that are from China AliExpress. I am gonna introduce each of them soon. It should have been 4, but the 4th one hasn't arrived yet. This one I bought here in Metro store. It looked like a decent quality, so I have decided to add it to the comparison. These 2 I added for fun. A basic kitchen knife that is dull. This is the edge. There should not be any shiny part like that. And this one is the same thing, which I sharpened myself, so we can see what kind of difference that makes. I know, I should just open them already. Alright, well, this looks much better, doesn't it? So which one is the best, you ask? You have been watching for almost 30 seconds. Well, I don't know yet. I haven't tried any of them yet, but I'm going to find out together with you. I left them the way they arrived, so you can see what they can do out of the box. Well, except these 2. All of these knives are supposed to be made from VG10, surrounded by a layer of Damascus stainless steel. The Metro knife. It cost $15, usually it costs around 20, but it was on sale, and for the same reason I couldn't get the 20 cm version because it was sold out. Of course, I have no idea about the hardness of the steel or what type of steel it is, but there is molybdenum vanadium written right on top of there, so it might be some decent quality for a good price. Dimensions. We have a length of 20 cm, 19.6 mm and 19.1 mm, a height of 44 mm, 43.5 mm and 44 mm, and the space between the edge and the handle is 25 mm, 21 mm and 20 mm. Packaging! This knife comes in a very pretty box, however, it smells like cheap shoes. This is the only knife that actually says that it is made from VG10 on the knife itself and also on the box. However, inside the box there is 440C written right there. Now it might be that the company also makes the same knife in a different material, but you're never sure. Now this knife, being almost $10 more expensive, it comes in a very pretty box, which smells a little bit like cheap shoes as well, but much less than the other one. All 3 knives also come with a tip protection that is made out of plastic. The cheapest knife comes wrapped in a foil in, I guess you could call this a box too. This is pretty self-explanatory, hangs like this in the shop. Balance. The balance point on this knife is right on the edge of the handle, right here. The balance point of this knife is right at the seam of the scales and the metal. This knife's balance point is right behind the edge of the handle, somewhere in this area. Considering that this knife is 5 cm longer than the others, it has a pretty decent balance. This beater knife has a balance point somewhere here, and this knife balance point is somewhere here, I guess. Handle materials. Micarta. This should be Paca wood. Maybe that explains why it's so lightweight. This one is supposed to be made out of rosewood, and this one is probably plastic. Guess what these 2 are? A good quality knife should be tapered from the end to the tip. The Metro knife shows us a good example of that. It is tapered all the way from about the half to the tip. The smaller versions are tapered all the way. That is actually excellent for such a cheap knife. Sadly, I can't say the same for all of these. None of them has a proper taper. The only one of them that I would consider slightly tapered is this one. Being that finished, it has a very thin tip as well. Here you can compare the tip to the rosewood handle knife. Here you can compare it to the micarta. Just for fun, this is the cheap knife's tip. You can see especially well how people treat their knives if you look closely at the tip. Bending test. This knife is very heavy. I can barely bend it. This one does bend, but flexes right back. This one bends even less than the other one. Pretty easy to bend, but it flexes right back as well. What about these 2? Yeah, this is easy. Yeah, this is easy as well. Sound test. I have seen other people checking knives by their sound. I am not sure which is better or worse, but just listen to it. Here are the weights, stop it if you care. File test. I know you shouldn't do this, but I wanna see if it's hardened. Yes, very hard. Also hardened. Even harder than that. Slightly softer. Much softer. very soft. Now we can finally start the cutting! Shaving out of the box. This one shoots the hair right off. This one cuts a hair or two, but definitely doesn't shave. I'm sure this will do great when sharpened. The thinner a knife is, the sharper it gets, and this one is definitely the thinnest of them all. You can see it's almost twice as thin as the other one. This one shaves well in the middle, but around the tip it's slightly duller. To my surprise, this big knife actually shaves really well. This one is the sharpest of them all, because I sharpened it. Do I even need to try this one? Paper test. This is definitely rougher than the other one, especially around the tip. Not that smooth either. This is so good. Very smooth. Is it already starting to get dull? My fingers are sharper than this. Forget it. Foam cutting. You can see very well how sharp a knife is if you try to cut foam. Very smooth. No mess around here. The tip is slightly duller. Back end is very sharp. As you can see, this knife makes a little bit more mess. This looks alright as well. Static electricity. Very sharp. This works. And this is what it looks like with a dull knife. See, it makes a huge mess that is very hard to clean up. Oh no. Tip test. The hardest part of a knife to sharpen is the very tip. You can try how sharp it is by slicing some packaging open. Yes, this has no resistance whatsoever. It's very sharp. With this one I need to push inside to get it to open, which means the tip is slightly duller. Still, if I push, I can easily open it. On this one the tip is very sharp. You can see the tip slides inside, but the edge is slightly dull. This tip is not very sharp. This doesn't have a tip, and neither does this. Cucumber! Cucumbers naturally grow a protective layer which you can cut open with a sharp tip, very easily. Let's see how the others do. Works. Works very nice. Works as well. Yeah, never mind. By the way, the seller of this knife also gave a free potato peeler to it. It's a very soft potato peeler. You can easily slide the blade out of it, but I guess if you want to sharpen it, that's a good thing. It actually works quite well. Yes. This knife bites right in, but then the wedge of the shape stops it. I've never done this before. Next knife. This bites a little bit less, but has less resistance throughout the cucumber. Since it's thinner, it does not create so much wedging. Also, I can seem to get thinner slices using it. Falls right inside, and I feel a little less wedging than with the other knife. It's also heavier, so maybe that's why. Feels very smooth. Let's see how thin we can go. This should be good enough. I was worried with this knife that I would hit my knuckles, but since I'm cutting on a board, I do not. I think if I did cut on a board, yes, I would hit them. That's not the case with the other knife, where the handle is slightly tapered. Well, I do touch it too, but at least the first two knuckles are protected. This knife fits my fingers easily. I should also mention that this knife has a very sharp spine. All the others have a rounded spine, which is smooth. This one is sharp. I'm not sure what it's good for in the kitchen. In bushcraft it's used to make tinder, which does not really work with a cucumber. This knife has the most resistance so far. I really have to push it through. You see, the European edge is sharp, but its shape is not very good, at least for this purpose. Feels much worse when cutting. I can't really get any thin slices here. This is surprising. It was the sharpest in the paper test, but here it doesn't feel just so good. The edge here has a sharper angle than this one. That's why this offers more resistance. It still cuts very well. Of course, we have to try our two cheapos as well. Let's start with the sharp one. I feel less resistance than with the big knife. I also feel that it is getting duller with each cut. It cuts a little bit by its own weight, but not that good. Now it's getting even worse than the big knife. Definitely worse. This is not sharp anymore. Let's compare it to something you might have home. I can see a lot of juice coming out of the cucumber. Using its own weight, I'm not getting anywhere. My hand has to push right through. Does it cut the cucumber? Yes, it does. Is it good? No, I'm not gonna use this one on the rest. Tomato test. I have one soft tomato and one hard tomato. You can see what kind of difference it makes. This is a wet board, and here I have a dry board, so you can see the juices flowing out. Let's start with this one. Yeah, this is very nice. It's a beat up tomato. This knife is very thick. I think I will be able to push it through. Very nice. You must not forget we have done already some stuff. This is out of the box. Seems to do better from this side. Nice. Next one. Just letting it fall through. Again, very good. This knife is thinner, so it doesn't have that much resistance, but it's duller, which makes up for it. Next knife, let it fall through. Nice. Yeah, the tip of the knife is dull. Yeah, this is both a little bit dull and has a little bit wedging, so it pushes the tomato before it cuts. But it cuts still pretty well. The big one. The dregs. It is sewing, it's not cutting. Yeah, it's not really so good. But still, I did cut in. Yeah, this feels almost just like the big knife. I will not really get through. This is already getting dull, at least in this level of sharpness. This is what it looks like when you try to cut tomato. Ah, finally. You might call it a knife. I think it's a spoon. A really odd shaped spoon. Cheese! Best way to show a knife's edge resistance is to cut cheese. Now it cut. And here I start to feel the wedging of the knife. Wedges, and I have to push, get it through, and it's worse and worse. You can see this knife's shape right here. It gets pretty thick pretty fast, which creates this resistance. This is a funny knife, so it should be better for the wedge. Also not so great. The other type of resistance is when the knife is dull, so you just have to push it through anyway. This is the same thing. See, it starts to wedge here. Then I push through, but I need a little bit less pushing than with the other one. This is not bad. Pairing it with this one. Yeah, I think you can see it. Can you see a difference? Of course, I did not forget my experiment here. You would say it cuts, right? I'm not sure. Maybe I used the wrong side. I'm not really sure. Both are the same. It's time to cry. For the last piece, I am going to use both of these knives. You can feel the wedging. This is not that bad, it looks cool. Yeah, let's not do that. Potatoes! By the way, I have just tried the peeler on a potato. There is absolutely no way you can peel a potato with it. It's just too soft. You press and it bends. I think it's kind of dangerous. You can make it work, but it's not comfortable at all. When you have a big potato like this, it sticks much better to the surface than it does with the other knives, because this is flat and these have dots in here. It actually does work, but only if the potato is really big, like big enough to stick to the whole surface. So if you got the skills, which I don't, you can make very, very thin slices. The height of this knife is pretty good. But the slices are very thick, no matter how much I try. This one sticks even more than the Damascus. Hey, I'm getting better at this. Yeah, my technique is not the best. This knife is also very thin. What about this knife? I I guess that counted. We are now close to the end. So which knife is the best? Honestly, I can't really tell you. I could feel some difference between this one and the others. This one has way more resistance, but I really can't decide. In fact, the whole reason why I bought 4 of them is that I couldn't choose. I actually chose 7 knives on AliExpress to buy, but I just couldn't decide. So I bought all of them. Well, not all, but 4 of them. And I still can't decide. However, since we have cut all of this stuff, we can now try if they stayed sharp. I will now show you if I find any hair left. This knife maybe cuts a hair or two, but I would really not say that it shaves. This one definitely cuts a hair or two, but doesn't shave. It's just slightly worse than it was at the beginning. That kind of surprises me. This one, it doesn't do anything. Doesn't shave at all. This one, it lost its sharpness almost completely. What about my cheap knife that I sharpened? This does nothing. Like, I don't even feel any edge there. Of course, you can't see how I shave from this view, so we are gonna repeat the paper test. And you can compare the beginning and the end. Definitely much rougher. This is still very smooth. I'm pretty convinced that this has a good heat treatment. Unlike the others, this one stayed sharp. Maybe that's why it's the only one that has VGT written on top. This is still very good. It lost its sharpness, it doesn't shave, but it's still very smooth when cutting paper. Some metals just don't hold a shaving sharpness, but they hold a very good paper cutting sharpness. This might be one of them. But about this knife, this is not bad either. This kind of surprises me too. I have not stropped any of them, I have not honed them, I have not sharpened them. I have done nothing but cut all this, you can see. And at last, my knife. Oh, I did it. Yes. Okay. And for fun. No, never mind. One last thing I would like to try is to cut some of this spring onion. Just to see if it gets cut clean off. This is clean. Maybe it's the cutting board, but this knife has trouble cutting it all the way through. Maybe it's with this knife too. Yeah, it's the cutting board. It's not even anymore. Anyway, all of these are clean. This might be a little bit cleaner, I think. This already presses it a little bit. And it presses it even more. That's to my conclusion. You have to make your own winner. I really can't decide. I think you will be happy with all of them. Having said that, this one has the most comfortable handle for me and is the cheapest. This one is the most lightweight and the thinnest. This did the thinnest pieces of potato. This one feels the heaviest, is the best balanced though. Also, I really like what it looks like. And this one you can use if you just don't want to spend this much money. But the good thing about Damascus is your family thinks it's very expensive, so they do pay attention to it. Thank you for watching and have a nice day.